In the early hours of November the 5th, 1605, Guy Fawkes was arrested while preparing to explode several dozen barrels of gunpowder in the cellars under Parliament House. It was his design to destroy the King and Parliament, and with his fellow conspirators, led by Robert Catesby, he planned to raise rebellion among the Catholics in the north of England. The object of the gunpowder plot was to put a Catholic king on the throne in place of the Protestant James I. To commemorate the discovery of the plot, November the 5th was declared a public holiday. Bonfire night became a traditional evening for anti-Catholic feeling, when people were reminded of their Protestant faith and of England's independence from foreign tyranny. Over the years, many other traditions came to be associated with Bonfire night, reflecting not just the religious but also the social conflicts of the past centuries. It became a time for protest and demonstration. Nowadays, these traditions are almost forgotten. In Lewes, small local groups called bonfire societies continue the almost forgotten traditions of bonfire. Some of these local traditions are peculiar to Lewes. Others, like the gunpowder plot, are part of English national folklore. The Cliff Bonfire Society is the oldest of the 6 bonfire societies in Lewes. Its members maintain a strictly traditional approach to bonfire. The ritual soaking of hand torches in paraffin takes place, as it has for years, very early on bonfire morning.
Take me, Watford. Ain't me. Ain't man, you can't before we got no guts left in him. Just like that barrel then. Right.
Are you proper?
The youngest of the 6 Lewes bonfire societies, the Neville Juveniles, is run entirely for children.
Can you move those torches across there? Pick up some of these dry ones and put the soap torches on top of them. The first year I think we made 6 torches. The next year we made 15 or 20 torches. The year after that we actually formed with about 20 people and about 60 torches. And the year after that we went round to see Councillor Breeze and asked him if we could start a bonfire society. And in '68 we formed into the Neville Juvenile Bonfire Society.
The Cliff's firework tableau is an important part of local bonfire tradition in Lewes. Assembled secretly outside the town, it remains hidden until the celebrations themselves begin. Pete Martin is responsible for its construction.
The tableau is a compromise between just a figure or a model and a firework display. The tableau that the Cliff have is a three-dimensional model with the fireworks built into it, which is taken around in the procession. Generally, I think I always try to make it some topical event. Well, it's called Hard Times. So we just got a very large hand holding an empty purse. The tableaus in the past have sometimes depicted political figures, religious aspects. Local unpopular characters have been burnt. Even recently they've been burning town councillors and so on. The traditions of the tableau making are handed down from each generation. So basically we're still doing it the same way that they were 100 years ago.
Finn, have you got the rest of the flash Romans down there?
The hand is 23 times life size. We leave a slot in all the tops of all the fingers and anywhere where fireworks will be coming out, because we don't really want to put the fireworks in until the last possible moment in case the fireworks would get damp. The main thing about the tableau, as opposed to a normal firework display, is that you only light it once, which is, I think, unique in firework making, that you have so many fireworks running for such a long time.
Anti-Catholicism has always been a part of November the 5th, and the Cliff continue this tradition in Lewes. Their chairman.
I would like to think that the members of the Cliff are there because they're trying to maintain a tradition, and burning the Pope is part of the true tradition of Bonfire.
What shall we do with him? Burn!
We certainly go to great lengths to tell the general public in whatever way we can. If people are prepared to pay 5p for our programme, it explains everything in there. The gunpowder plot was a popish plot to overthrow a Protestant king. Lewes was one of the centres where quite a few Protestant martyrs got burnt at the stake, and therefore I think that the anti-Catholic traditions are taken from there. But we have had trouble with people thinking that we're burning the present-day Pope. The bulk of people taking the spirit that it's meant. We're carrying out a tradition that is centuries old.
That's enough for me.
You've got to get the spirit of it.
The society makes a tradition itself. We have a tradition at the War Memorial where we have them service to remember the dead of the two world wars.
On the 5th of November 1847, following several years of violence and damage to life and property, and an attack on the house of a magistrate, 80 Metropolitan Police were drafted into Lewes, and many townspeople were sworn in as special constables. Minor disturbances began early in the evening, but the authorities took no action until the mail gig was bolted. A man lay injured, and the crowd began to get excited. From the steps of County Hall, Lord Chichester read the Riot Act, ordering the crowds to disperse. In the skirmish that followed, the police charged the revellers and the crowd broke up. But in the town, for many nights after, there was a great deal of unrest. November the 5th had become a day when the ordinary people of Lewes could demonstrate freely, a day on which they could express their discontent. The violence of the Lewes riots certainly reflects the great social and political unrest of those hard times. The authorities, realizing they could never stop the November the 5th celebrations in Lewes, agreed instead to the formation of bonfire societies to conduct the celebrations in an orderly fashion. The masks and striped shirts that had been worn as disguises by the rioters gradually evolved into the fancy dress costumes of today.
In the East Sussex town of Lewes, few people need prompting to remember the 5th of November. It's a part of local history still capable of causing local controversy. A plaque in the town centre commemorates the burning of 17 Protestant martyrs in the reign of Mary Tudor, which seems to account for a continuing religious theme over the years. At one time there were sectarian riots to accompany the celebrations, and by long-standing tradition, one bonfire society has always burnt a papal effigy alongside that of Guy Fawkes. It's a practice which some local clergy still find offensive.
There certainly seems sectarian elements to it, and there have been for hundreds of years, and although the organisers say that this is just good fun and no harm is meant, it nevertheless, these things do cause offence and hurt to to Christians.
Is it then principally the burning of the effigy of the Pope which disturbs you?
That happens, but I certainly go by last year when the self-styled Reverend Mr. Paisley came over, and there were quite a lot of, to me, most primitive anti-papal tracts distributed here and there in the crowd. And as you know, 6 months later there was that splendid visit of the Pope, full of peace and joy. It seemed particularly absurd.
Well, as you say, the organisers might well argue that it is just a bit of innocent fun. I believe last year one of the effigies they burnt was of yourself.
Yes, I believe it is. I don't mind about that at all. It's no importance. But as I say, there are much more important things than that, and I think the chief one is that it still causes pain, however slight it may be.
The bonfire societies themselves have always maintained an air of secrecy before the night, not least about displaying the effigies they've prepared. But the traditional form of celebration does have its defenders.
My feeling is that bonfire is, in effect, a protest movement. It's a protest movement that the people of the town feels has to happen. It can protest against a variety of things. It could even protest against modern political matters or whatever.
From time to time, I understand, it would become quite a disorderly occasion.
It used to get out of hand. It used to have periods of really very considerable violence. People were injured. The houses of magistrates were attacked. The Riot Act had to be read. Thousands of police were drafted in from all over the county and many other parts of the country in order to keep things under control. But nowadays, whether we're in a lull, I don't know. But nowadays, it's quiet, it's friendly, and it's immensely good-natured.
And so they may not make the headlines any longer, but the celebrations will go ahead this evening as they have for more than 3 centuries. The old controversy, probably an inseparable part of the old tradition.
Well, we burn an effigy of the Pope to remember the 17 martyrs that died outside the town hall in Lewes, which was known in those days as the Star Inn. The 17 Protestant martyrs were burned.
But don't you think you're rather out of step with sort of modern thinking by continuing this tradition now?
No, we carry out our celebrations on this particular theme without any bigotry or hatred in our hearts. We do it as a day of remembrance.
But surely you must accept that Catholics would take exception or might take exception to this.
Well, they might do, but we do have a lot of Catholics, in fact, that support us and in fact are even members of the society.
Cliff Bonfire Society's No Popery banner, and this is Cliff High Street in Lewes, where in just over an hour's time the torch passing. Later on there'll be a prayer reading, and I'll read one of the prayers from the official programme. A penny loaf to feed the Pope, a farthing of cheese to choke him, a pint of beer to rinse it down, a faggot of sticks to burn him in a tub of tar, burn him like a blazing star, burn his body from his head, then we'll say, old Pope is dead. Hip hip hurrah.
It is a No Popery banner which goes up today, and that's happening today. And for people to see that is it's a public insult to Roman Catholics. They don't say this refers to 1605 or something like that.
See, they say that they're not religious bigots. Would you accept that? I mean, would you accept that it is done just out of a sense of historical tradition?
I would accept that most of them are not religious bigots. it's certainly done out of tradition, and that is the only good argument for having this anti-Catholic slogan.
Would you like now to take this opportunity to say something to members of the Cliff Society?
I think I would say I'd ask them to join in this prayer, as a matter of fact, the one that we had at Mass yesterday. As we recall the brave witness of so many Catholic and Protestant martyrs, we pray for reconciliation, forgiveness, and loving understanding among all Christians. And the response was, Lord, make us grow in your love. I'm afraid there are some, I don't say they belong to the Cliff Bonfire Society, but I know there are people, some in the town, who I don't think would join in with me with that prayer. That's what we regret.